Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by Bakar to preview Gameweek 8. Bakar, off the back of a green arrow and the international break, it's good to have you back on the channel. Not too much to chat about this week really, so we're going to be looking at your team more specifically than usual, although there are, of course, a couple of key talking points, but it's more of a chilled week, right?
Hello, Jack, and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Thanks for having me. It's been a nice, stress-free, peaceful break. When I walked around in Game Week 6, I was, hoping that I'd make a lot of gains heading into this period. It hasn't really gone according to plan so far because I've been meandering along at a similar rank for the past 2 weeks. But now I guess this is really the time where I've got to kick on, and this is where things get serious, especially this time where the congestion is going to kick in. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the weeks to come.
Okay, let's have a look at the team for Game Week 8. And it looks super strong. I mean, the depth is a joke. You knew this when you built the wild card, that there was going to be a lot of depth there. And I think this is probably the first week where it just looks really strong. Let's just go through sort of the positions by positions, defense, midfield, and attack, and talk us through who you're thinking of starting and who you're thinking of benching in your team in particular.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So when you come to the starting 11, I think it's a bit of a toss-up between Rodgers and Saliba. I'm definitely going to be benching Semenyo because of the fixture, and because his upside is limited in that fixture. Mykolenko, I'm not even sure if he's fit. And besides that, even if he is, I still back Ipswich to score at home against most teams. So, I mean, those two are done. It's the first sub which is the issue, and that could be Saliba, that could be Rodgers. I am not going to be benching Porro because this is precisely why I have him for this stretch of fixtures that Spurs have coming up. Similarly, we are unlikely to hear any leak from Man City because it's a Sunday fixture. I doubt we hear any Rico Lewis leak, and if we don't, in that case, surely I'll just play him and hope for the best.
Yeah,
it's too risky benching him. I can't bench Gabriel because of his goal threat, so that just leaves me effectively with these two to choose between.
Yeah,
and currently I'm genuinely 50-50. I mean, this could go either way till the deadline. I might as well flip a coin because there's nothing between Saliba and Rodgers.
I'm
actually very curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I would definitely go Rodgers here. I just think that Saliba's got such a ceiling, and I also don't think that Bournemouth away is the easiest fixture for a clean sheet. I know they've been unlucky in the past couple of games, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like Saliba, you're thinking 2 or most likely 6. I think you'd expect him to get 5-6 points in that game. Whereas Rodgers, I think Rodgers would, and 1 goal involvement, and he's doing better than that. I personally would go for Rodgers there. It just depends. It depends how likely you think the clean is. But you do also have Gabriel already. I know it doesn't really mean much if you've only got one Arsenal defender. Their effective ownership will probably be above 100 this week, I'd imagine. So you'd only benefit from the clean if you have Saliba as well. But Saliba's goal threat is so low these days that I do just see him as clean sheet and that's it. And I'm not even that sure that he'd get any
exactly.
bonus.
I mean, he's not even had a single shot this season.
Yeah.
And not a single shot, not a single key pass. So I agree with you. It's just that Arsenal have the best defense in the league, and we've seen them clean against better teams in the league. They've cleaned away to Spurs, they've cleaned away to Villa, and they're stronger teams in Bournemouth. So even though Bournemouth are the kind of team that will probably have a go at home, it's not clear cut. And yeah, currently I'm playing Rodgers, but I'm not totally convinced because I don't think Rodgers' ceiling is that high either. I don't think he's gonna get a crazy amount of points either. So that's just the decision that I'm trying to sort of weigh up. But yeah,
I'd agree with that. And also, I think like Fulham away is not an easy fixture at all. Fulham have had a very good start to the season, really. But I would play the attacker there. If it was somebody else, like even if it was Porro in a slightly worse fixture, I would still play Porro. Like if the defender had any upside, I'd play the defender probably.
Yeah, but I hear you.
I don't see any upside with Saliba this year. I mean, maybe I'm looking too much at the predicted points here, but Saliba is so far behind Gabriel now in game to game. Like he's 1.2 points down in every game because he has so little goal threat compared to Gabriel, who's had obviously great goal threat. He's already scored a couple of goals this season.
It's also that, this is probably going to be a game where you expect plenty of goals from the Arsenal and Bournemouth attackers. So even if Arsenal clean, you probably don't think that Saliba will get bonus
Yeah,
points. Doesn't seem
exactly.
like that kind of fixture as well. So yeah, that's a good point
You can
actually.
go both ways with it. You can say that Arsenal they are statistically the best defense. I think everyone would agree that they are the best defense
There
just
are,
in general. But
you
the
know,
clean sheets that they've had have been fortunate, and the clean sheets they haven't had have been unfortunate. So it's whatever way you want to go with. I mean, you're saying that they've kept clean sheets against better attacks than Bournemouth, yeah, but they've also not kept clean sheets against worse attacks.
Yeah, but it comes down to what narrative you back, right? You
Of
can
course,
back the
of
narrative
course.
that Fulham have conceded the fewest big chances this season, which is actually true, and which is a very shocking stat that
Wow.
no team has conceded more big chances than Fulham. But that's because they've had a very kind schedule. They had a good fixture run to begin with. And then you can also back the narrative that Villa might have one eye on the Munich trip
Yeah.
in midweek, so Rodgers might not get let's say close to 80 or 85 number of minutes. That's the tricky part, and it depends on what narrative you back. But yeah, generally as a rule of thumb, I tend to agree with you. Whenever it's a 50-50 decision, it's kind of more exciting to back the attacker as well.
It's just like, if the clean sheet does go early on, then you're like, well, that was a shame. Probably should have just gone for
Yeah.
Rodgers. I don't know. It's just it's. I think that it's more fun to go with the attacker in general, and especially when there's very little upside from Saliba. Let's move on. Let's talk about Saka. He's still got a flag. I personally think he's going to be completely fine, but other people don't seem to think that necessarily. I just feel like we've seen this before with Saka a couple of times where we've not been sure if he's going to start or not, but then he's played pretty much the full game. But talk to me about Saka's chances for playing this game in your opinion. His predicted points are a little bit lower because he is flagged. And then let's talk about somebody that a lot of managers might be thinking of replacing Saka with in Palmer, who's not in your team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm planning on keeping Saka if he's fit. The good thing is that it's an away trip. So even though Arteta hasn't really been helpful in providing us with any accurate info in the past, looking at the precedent, but because it's a away fixture, we might hear news that Saka's traveled. He might be pictured at the hotel. I remember distinctly that around this time last year, that was close to being, I think, maybe 6, 7, 8, somewhere around this point. It was the exact same fixture. Saka away to Bournemouth, and he was a doubt, and he was pictured by someone at the hotel, and a lot of people kept him, and he hauled in that fixture. So we might have a similar kind of situation again. If he's injured, then I think I will probably look at Sun.
Okay.
Again, that is assuming that Sun is fit. Now we
Yeah.
don't know whether Sun will be fit, but Andrew's confident that he'll be back after the international break, and he generally is a more honest and a straightforward kind of manager as opposed to Arteta, and he doesn't really hide anything in the press conferences. So if Sun is available, I'd imagine we'd know. And if he's available, I'm confident that he'll start. Spurs have a really, really good run of fixtures. So when you look at Spurs, they're playing West Ham this week. Then they have Ipswich as well in Game Week 11. This is Ipswich at home as well. So that's like a run which I planned for when I wildcard in Game Week 6. I already have Porro. I have Solanke. And if given the opportunity, let's say if Saka's unfit, then I don't mind going Son as well, so that I can prep myself for their upcoming run of fixtures. He hasn't really been amazing this season, but I guess we know with Son that he at least has the pedigree. He could be on penalties, and historically he has been a very high points getter for FPL. That he could be a good pick because I see a lot of people looking at Brennan, but I think if I'm picking between both, I'd still obviously just pick Son because he's been more prolific in the past. If, for example, if you're looking at selling someone cheaper, for example, Luis Diaz, a lot of people are looking at selling him.
Yeah.
Then I think Brennan is a more uh, better replacement as opposed to Son for Saka.
Okay. Okay. Now, before we move on to talking about your team and transfers for this week and potentially moving forward, and I do want to ask you about if you have any Palmer plans.
Yeah.
Firstly, just looking across the rest of your team, are you generally happy with all the players and maybe not this week, but just in future, are there any positions in particular that you're thinking, okay, that's a weak spot, or do you still think the wild card is looking super strong?
It looks all right, to be very honest. I don't think my team would be that far away from a wildcard Game Week 8 team. So if I was
Yeah.
wildcarding this week, Maybe the defense would be a bit different. That the attack would be the exact same. The front three.
Oh, really?
In midfield, I would still have Fernandez. Funnily enough, I think I would still have him. I would have Mbemo. I would have Rogers.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. That's the question I'm asking is how different,
yeah,
how different would your team be now if you had a wild card? And saying that it would be very similar is a great thing to say.
yeah, exactly. I guess I won't have Semenyo, but that doesn't really matter because I'm not playing Semenyo this week anyway,
No, no.
right? So I guess the front seven would be extremely similar. I guess there would be one or two changes at best. In defense, I think I'd still have Flecken. Over here, I have Flecken. I'd have Porro. I have Porro in my team. I'd have Lewis. I'd have Lewis here as well. I think Guardiola is probably the only one who I'm missing, but it's fine. It's not as if, having a Guardiola over a Saliba or let's say, a Gabriel isn't the end of the world. It's fine.
No.
So, yeah, I don't think it's my team is too far away from what I would build if I was wildcarding in Gameweek 8. Yeah, I want to touch upon Bruno and Palmer as well. Uh, I mean, Bruno has been horrible to own. A lot of the people who watch the videos, they seem to comment more on Bruno rather than anything else. And I mean, 16 points and 7 starts isn't great reading. 1 return as well. It's been a horrific player to own. But I mean, the fixtures coming up are so good that it's fine. I mean, I don't want to get rid of him. Why would I sell him before Brentford at home, West Ham, Chelsea at home, Leicester at home, Ipswich away? And I know I might be sounding like a broken record, but it's just the way it is. I mean, currently at this point in time, I don't think it makes sense to sell him. And even if I sell him, who will I buy? Because I don't have anything in the bank. I'm not sure there are like maybe I can go to Brennan, but if I'm planning for Son, Brennan blocks Son. I don't necessarily want to do that either. So I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't want to replace a good pick with another good pick. And it may sound ridiculous calling him a good pick, but yes, he hasn't delivered FPL points, but the data suggests that he's still a good pick. So I make my suggestions on the basis of analytics and data, not on the basis of past FPL points. And it's just the way I play.
Yeah, fair enough. I would say that he's not a sell this week, but that if he does blank again, he definitely is next week. I think next week is the week to jump off. Personally, I just look at the fact that United have scored 5 goals this season. It's the worst ever Premier League start. And there are better options than him, in my opinion. There are players that are cheaper than him that are getting more points and are statistically outperforming him over the recent weeks, anyway. And I think that if you do want to potentially look at upgrading Saka to Palmer, I don't know if that's a plan of yours, then that could be a good way of doing it. There might not be an obvious option this week, but as you said, Brendan Johnson, if he scores again, that's going to become a bandwagon very, very quickly. You mentioned Tottenham's fixtures. And there are lots of options at below the 8 million price bracket. They're not massive standout options, but as you said, 16 points in 7 weeks. It's not great form. Let's be fair.
Of course, you're right. But this is what you have to deal with in FPL. For example, there will be stretches where your players will underperform. There will be stretches where they will overperform, right? Your rationale should not change. I mean, if Bruno was not producing the underlying data, I would genuinely say that he's a terrible pick. But because the underlying data is all right, it's not amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's not as if he's pulling up trees or anything, but it's not terrible either. It's all right. If you had 1 or 2 returns, if you had for example, if he had gotten 3 returns like his data suggested, would we be discussing this? I don't think so. I think we'd be having a different conversation.
No, we wouldn't. But sometimes I do think you have to look at the actual returns rather than.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Stats.
That's a very fair point.
That's how you manage. I understand that. Anyway, let's round things off with looking at your recommendations. Yeah, well, Palmer. I'm gonna start with the recommendations because Palmer isn't recommended here. So let's talk about him straight away. I mean, the fixture run for Chelsea is not fantastic. In fact, we have some very challenging fixtures coming up. And yeah, despite Palmer being the form player in FPL, Fantasy Football Hub's AI recommendations do not include him. They're not suggesting that you need to go out of your way to get him. Why do you think that is?
It's because Chelsea are playing Liverpool away this week, and then they have Arsenal in Game Week 11. So I'm sure by the time Game Week 12 comes up, every algorithm there is will have Palmer in their recommended transfers because the fixtures for Chelsea are so good. And that's exactly how I plan on playing it as well. Let's say if Saka's injured, I get Son this week. Then I'll keep Son till 11 till the time they have Ipswich, and then in 12 I'll look to move him on for Palmer. So this slot in my team is probably going to be one which I keep on rotating between the premium midfielders, depending on whichever has good fixtures. Currently, Palmer is not top of my shopping list, even though he tends to every single week he is getting returns and he's killing my rank with his high ownership. But looking at the fixtures to come, I think I can live without him. So yeah, he's not exactly high on my shopping list at this point in time.
Looking at your recommendations here, it's very interesting. A couple of players that we've talked about in the video. First of all, how many free transfers do you have?
I have 3.
Yeah. And the AI is actually recommending that you use all 3. Now, that's pretty aggressive, but as you guys can see on the right, looking at the predicted points, comparing the players that the AI is recommending to transfer out with the players it's recommending to transfer in, there is a bit of a disparity between those green and red lines. The transfers are as follows. Calvert-Lewin, Bruno Fernandes, and Saliba all out for Chris Wood, Eze, and Gvardiol.
Yeah, I mean, Gvardiol is fine, but again, Saliba for Gvardiol, maybe, but I already have a benching headache. Why I don't want to get myself into another one. As mentioned, Bruno Fernandes is fine. I'm not personally going to sell him. Calvert-Lewin has Ipswich and Southampton too the next 3, so the fixtures are really good. I actually looked briefly at considering Calvert-Lewin out, but then the fixtures are so good that I'm fine keeping him. And he's only 5.9 million, so why 6 million, I guess, by now. So why would I sell him? I don't want to sell him.
It's interesting, these moves. I probably wouldn't do any of them, but like just looking at the predicted points, I see why they're being recommended from a statistical sort of viewpoint.
Strategically as well, I want to talk. Why I think saving a transfer is probably better for my team is because from game week 10 onwards, Liverpool's fixtures are sort of getting better. They're playing Brighton home, Aston Villa home, then Southampton's the big one in game week 12. And by that time, I want to be in a position where I can get at least Trent. I don't have Trent.
Yeah.
And maybe Salah. So that is why it may appear to be passive that I'm saving too many transfers. But when I don't have anything, let's say when I don't have any high priority transfer to make, I want to save my transfer so that I'm in that position by, let's say, game week 10 to be in a position to get Liverpool players comfortably. Because that would require some degree of surgery in my team.
No, I do agree with you, and I do think looking at your team, I would definitely be rolling as well. Assuming that Saka is fit. Even if he wasn't fit, I'd probably roll, to be honest. You have a strong first bench option. But yeah, it's just whether you want to go early, get aggressive with transfers, or do you think that the opportunity cost of using those transfers now will harm your potential for more exciting and higher ceiling picks and transfers down the line. But as always, it's food for thought looking at your recommendations on Fantasy Football Hub. Guys, if you want to go and check out your own
captaincy, Haaland, of course.
Of course. We don't need to talk about him. But yeah, guys, if you want to check out your own, link down below. But yeah, there we go. Bakar locked in Haaland captaincy, and we'll see your transfers on the website if you do make any, or roll. If you guys want to know what Bakar ends up doing, then check out his final team reveal on the website. Thank you very much as always, mate. Good luck this game week.
Cheers, bro. Thank you.
Catch you on the next one.
All right. Bye-bye.